The modern missionary should be all things to all men, so writes Bishop Lamont, not only in the spiritual sense, as St. Paul speaks, but in a more worldly one too. He should be tinker, tailor, butcher, baker, and candlestick maker. In fact, he should be everything.
These words, penned in the earliest days of the Carmelite mission in Rhodesia, capture the spirit of a small band of Irish friars who arrived in November 1946. Donald Lamont, Anselm Corbett, and Luke Flynn stepped into a land still marked by colonial structures, yet yearning for a deeper pastoral presence. Their vision was of service, that is, to be all things to all men. As of 2026, the Carmelites have been in Zimbabwe for 80 years, and their impact cannot be understated.
The Carmelites and the Diocese of Mutare were very closely knit for a long time. You see, when the Carmelites came here in 46, there was no Diocese of Mutare. 1947, there was no diocese. It was only in 1953 that the diocese began to shape up. And then in 1957 it was constituted a diocese. And the only Carmelite priest practically there at that time. I don't think Father Matari was only ordained in 1965. So there was no Zimbabwean priests working here in Mutare going back to 1950s. And that's why the Carmelites and the diocese were very much intertwined for a long time, because there were only Carmelites, priests and brothers working in this diocese. Now that all changed as time went on, you know. That all changed. Now look at it.
However, they were not the first Catholic missionaries in the country, and particularly in today's Diocese of Mutare, other congregations had already arrived.
The Trappists came and managed to then occupy Price Hill and started building. The Trappists come Marin Hill. Then from the arrival to 1929. And from 1929, the Jesuits took over Trisel Mission until 1948. Then the Carmelites arrived in 1946 and stayed with them, understanding what they were doing and what was happening on the mission. Then the Carmelites stayed until the last Carmelites to be at Trisel were Ambrose and Michael Dyer.
The story of the Carmelite friars in Zimbabwe begins with Bishop Aston Chichester, who invited the Irish Carmelites to Zimbabwe, where he needed missionaries to take over the pastoral care of the Eastern Highlands and the difficult rural regions of the country. They accepted. And in November 1946, 3 Irish Carmelite missionaries, Fathers Donald Lamont, Luke Flynn, and Anselm Corbett, arrived in Salisbury, now Harare, by train. For the next 2 years, they went to St. Michael's in Mondoro to learn the local language in preparation for the work ahead. By 1948, they had settled at Trisel Mission and started working immediately. Other missions inherited from the Jesuits included St. Barbara's and St. Killian's.
Indakatanga kuona 1949. Ndiro gore ndatanga kuenda kufunda standard 6 paTrisel. Tigona wanafata curious. Bekutoka ngawapfeka madhuku fanika wasikana. Tiona kuti isisi mapisi takaitina wechijesuit akanga asingapfeki madhuku. Aisaka heti wangoroita misa vanoisaka heti wangoipfeka heti. Zvinisi inini ndandiri mubatidzi wemisa, ndindaibatidza misa dzemajesuit kuno kuba izvo ndakazoenda kutraizi ndakabva ndandobatidza misa iyo maCarmelite ndafundiswa kubatidza misa dzemaCarmelite ndikabatidza misa yaBishop Lamondi uyo.
Ini chandinoyeuka ngechekuti Father Isidore handichadzigore. Takamuona kwama wangu St. Nicholas. Isusu taati vapwere. Saka takaenda ikoko. Tikanomuona kwete kuti atiri kufambiri ngezvevapwere. Because ndasati tapinda chikoro. Ndobva takaona Father Isidore. Tikapiwa zvimabhanzi here kana kuti tiri kutaura naFather Isidore uya. Anga ari kugara mutende katende yopa St. Nicholas pamaungwa.
By the 1950s, as more Carmelite friars began arriving from Ireland and the United States, missionary operations also began to expand into the establishment of new missions built from scratch by the Carmelites. These would include St. Teresa of Avila in Katerere, Regina Coeli Mission in Nyanga, St. Simon Stock in Rusape, St. Therese in Chuduku, among many others. It was standard procedure to visit the local chief of each area for permission and official land allocation.
Chita chemaCarmelites chichitanga kuuya muno munzvimbo medu makaterere. Wakatanga kusvika kumadzimambo. Kuna mambo akaunganidza madzisabhuku ake ose kuti huyai munzwe shoko ratiri kutaurirwa. Waiwa nemuturikiri wawo ataurwa uya ainzi tichashoniwa. Saka pakuturikira pake zvaita kuti manje communication yedu tinzwanane nevarungu iwawa. Wakauya wakati isusu tauya tine zvinhu zvitatu zvatinenge tichida kusimudzira mudzinzvimbo. Tine chikoro kudzidziswa kwewana, tine kunamata kurumbidza. Makambonzwa chinonzi Mwari here? Vabereki wakati hongu tinoziva kuti kuna musikarudzi ari kumatenga. Tine kurapwa kunofanirwa kuti kuitwe kuwanhu, kusiri kwekungochera midzi musango, asi kune kurapwa kunonzi kuzvipatara. Tikati tine chipatara chiriko kwataienda kuIlemu kumusoro uko. Saka tinenge tichida kukuitirai muri mudhuze muchiyeuka. Saka matungamiriri wedu wakabva wazvigashira, wakabva wapuwa nzvimbo, waitopiwa nzvimbo nemadzisabhuku. Ino iyi nzvimbo yaSamakande. Saka wakanzi takukupai pekuti muwake musha wenyu. Wakabva wawaka panapa, wachibva wawaka inonzi chechi yaipindwa kusvondo rega rega vachikurudzira kuti isusu tinenge tichinamata, munofanira kuti muuye muone maitiro atinenge tichizviita. Chokwadi vanhu wakauya, kuchibva kwazouya chikoro waitofamba maraini wachitora tuwana tumwe tuchitotiza nokuti tanga tisingazviziva kuti zvinobatsire chii. Saka wachituma vanhu wavo maticha wachiuya kunotora wana mumamisha vachivanzi dzidzai kuchikoro, chikoro chinozokubatsira muupenyu hwako remangwana. Ende vanhu takazvigashira.
Kuuya kwevanhu ava wakauya kutanga kukumbira kuti tikuda kuisawo chechi apa. Tinotora nhoroondo yechechi yacho iyoyo kuti munonamata sei. Tikaona zvakakodzera kuti chechi iyo ndazvitambira zvinodiwa nechechi iyoyo, ndogona kutambira mashoko iwayo, ndoti alright, iwewe neni tochienda kupi? Kumusoro kwa chief kana kuti sadunu, tondosvika tondovaisa, woisa chiombero chekuombera. Kana panapa vanotouya vachitaura nechiombero muromo, vanobvisa muromo. Vobva panapa vanobvisa chiombero kwashe. Vabvisa chiombero kwashe choziva kuti mudunhu make mune chechi inonzi Nhingi, ine mitemo yakati. Takagutsikana nayo mitemo iyi kuti tinge tiri tinonamata nevanhu vane mitemo yakanaka kudaro.
When a missionary wanted to establish a place, he would first of all seek the permission of the chief of the area, out of respect, because as you know that land ownership in Zimbabwe is not like in other countries that people own this land. It is communal land, and when it is the land of the country, it's not owned by one individual. Private ownership is something that came with the Europeans. And so the chief would normally be approached, and he would allocate, together with his headmen, allocate a place where a mission could be established. But also with insider information, because there would be certain persons who may have already benefited from the school program of the missionaries, and they would probably sing the positive aspects of the church. First of all, the establishment of a school, the establishment of a clinic or hospital. And many missions started like that, because it almost became every mission a point of development. So relationships with chiefs was very essential, because they had the powers then to say, come to my area, or if you approach them, to say, yes, here.
The Carmelites recognized that the colonial government provided minimal schooling for black Zimbabweans, and as a result, the Friars dedicated a lot of effort to academic expansion by establishing dozens of remote outstation schools on top of the already expanding schools on inherited missions. They brought literacy to isolated rural populations. Education became the primary tool for community engagement. As for health, the Carmelites, with the help of other congregations like the Presentation Sisters and the Dutch Sisters of Charity, systematically integrated clinics into almost every major mission station, something that was almost non-existent.
Makamela sakatitira zvinhu zvakawanda zvamunogeta chose panapa. Ndingati etsama developments angari pano mbato redzidzo reeducation vakaita establish primary school parapa, boarding primary school, zvekuti vamwana vazhinji kana vaibva kuHarare kana kopi nekopi vaya kuzodzidza pano paboarding pano paFriars mission from standard 4 to standard 6. Then panga paine zvakaita saskole zvandabva kutaura, ndobva vaita establish zvakare carpentry, vabva vaita zvakare domestic science, vaita zvakare building, ndoma development education iwaya.
The evangelization approach of the Trappists and Marian Hill, and then Jesuits, followed by Carmelites at Trice Hill, was a progression in the same evangelization method, which started with a thrust on education, and with education with production before it was called that, because it was focusing on other aspects of life, particularly like agriculture or growing orchards, dairy cows, and all of that. So anybody who passed through that period would have learned these skills, which are life skills and are still important even to people now when they wish to look at themselves and raise funds for their sustenance.
But all this good work was not without its challenges. Language was one of them. Surviving outside of the comforts of a house, risking health and life, was another. Yet these early missionaries rose above such challenges. Perhaps it was this willpower, this tenacity, that was rewarded by the very God these men served, to inspire conversions, local support, and a foundation that has lasted for 80 strong years and counting.
Vaineseka zvakanyanya nenyaya yecommunication kuti vanga vari varungusi tiri vashona kuti panga paine something fiendish vaibvunza kuti zita romwana uyo vana father wotofuti zita romwana ndobva vanyora kuti mwana wacho anonzi Romana. So with the chain of Romanas until zvazogadziriswa kunzi then hamusonzwisana vari kuedza kubvunza kuti mati zita remwana here muri kunyora kuti zita romwana saka vangaushamizika kuti vana Romana vese vanasikana vese vanoita vana Romana. How is that going? Ndobva zvazogadziriswa hazvo izvizvo.
The first one I met a Carmelite was Father Desmond Clark. But the little thing I know about Father Clark, he was saying all this kind of thing people talk about, dedicated, all that kind of, but he was a very good worker and good at kind of talking to people, and he well polished the shone. That was a gift for him. There was no place for him or any even little hut to sleep. There was nothing. So he went and seated under a kind of a little tree and put branches all around to make sure that he has a kind of a shade where to sit.
By 1957, the Diocese of Umtali, now Mutare, was constituted, and Donald Lamont, one of the first Carmelites to step into Zimbabwe, became its first bishop. As bishop, he oversaw major developments in the life of the diocese and soon began to evolve as the voice of justice.
Well, as a bishop, I started working with him. I was young then. In 1957, he was consecrated a bishop in 1957 at the Mary Mount. And we came from Avila Mission, ourselves being young and so on, to drink Coca-Cola. And we drank Coca-Cola. And there was a blend of Coca-Cola. It was lorries and lorries. It was interesting. Lorries and lorries when we drank. It was a kind of feast. Also, it was a feast for that man to be consecrated the bishop. There were thousands of people. And of course, Bishop Lamont was already famous. He was not pleased with what was going on here. What you would call in a symbolic minded people say racial discrimination here. He didn't like it.
From 1946 to 1966, the Carmelites laid foundations in schools, healthcare, and rural evangelization. They became part of the communities they served, embodying the missionary vision of being everything to the people. This versatility defined the first 20 years of Carmelite presence in Zimbabwe, a story of arrival, foundation, and the architecture of faith. The stage is now set for Bishop Donald Lamont, whose voice, together with the work of fellow Carmelite brothers, rise against injustice, shaping the conscience of a nation all the way to independence.